Hey guys, happy Friday. Hope you're doing well. We got the Season 2 patch notes today, and there's a couple of bullet points that I really wanted to hone in on, specifically in regards to the movement in Battlefield 6. Movement is still a hot topic in the community, and this video might ruffle a few feathers of some people on the internet, but let's dive into it, shall we? For the movement in Battlefield 6, we still don't really know the direction the developers are going for when it comes to the overall design, because they don't really talk about it. We kind of still have to extrapolate their intention from game updates alone. It'd be nice if they just came out and fully explained it to us, but for whatever reason, it's classified information, I guess. So here we are trying to interpret the vague wording they use in updates. But let's look at what the update note actually says. From the changelog, it states, adjusted the acceleration curve of slide and jumps to better account for the player's speed when entering a slide or a jump. To be honest, this doesn't really explain anything to me, but let's try to decipher it. When they say adjusted the acceleration curve of slide and jumps, it sounds to me like the developers aren't happy with the speed of slides and jumps as it is currently in game. They seem to see a need to adjust this, but they aren't clear on which direction they're going with this. Are they making it slower or faster? We don't really know. We've seen some statements a few months ago from the developers where they basically mentioned in an update note that they wanted the speed of the slide to be consistent with the speed of the soldier sprint, and to not have it be impeded or pulled back by invisible forces when you jump, which makes sense, but the actual implementation of this in-game doesn't seem to match that design at the moment. You'll see some players online stating that the movement in Battlefield 6 is unusable and that the slide jump doesn't give you a boost, but to me it seems like it actually does. Maybe I'm going crazy here, who knows? As you can see in some of this gameplay from the current build of Battlefield 6, there is a bit of a boost that you get when performing a slide jump. It's especially effective when you blow past a doorway where you're trying to break an enemy's aim to gain an advantage over them. It's not necessarily an authentic movement and can sometimes be pretty unreadable and especially more difficult for controller players who can't turn as fast with their sticks. It can be kind of frustrating when you do react in time and you just can't turn fast enough to address the threat because you're on a controller. So if this means the boost that you get from a slide is being normalized, that could be a nice change. From this bullet point they put in the changelog, it doesn't really tell us if they're intending for it to be faster or slower outright. You could honestly make a case both ways judging by what they said here, but if I were to guess, judging by their previous statements in the update about consistency, it sounds like they found some inconsistencies here in regards to sliding and jumping and the way that those two things accelerate. Again, it could just be that they think it's too slow and are wanting for it to be faster and smoother like the movement enjoyers are hoping for, but there's also a chance that this could be a nerf to this specific area of the movement that a lot of players are utilizing currently. If you watch any gameplay from Enders or other highly skilled players, they use this to great effect. It does seem like you do get a little bit of a boost whenever you do a slide jump. Perhaps this could be the inconsistency that they're talking about. It also seems like there could be a potential direct nerf to the slide overall. But again, it is kind of hard to comprehend what they actually mean behind the wording. It says, reduced the maximum slide impulse length by 25% to improve balance and readability during fast movement. So it sounds like the initial burst that you get at the beginning of a slide has been reduced by 25%, if I'm understanding this correctly. If that is the case, I think it is a great change. You will probably see some fiery complaining about this if this is perceived as a direct nerf, because a lot of movement enjoyers do not want the movement nerfed at all. But it'll be fun to see how that plays out. If you've watched the very first video on my channel that I did back in December, the main thing I want from soldier movement in Battlefield is for it to follow Battlefield's authentic design where movement actions are somewhat believable. When I see players bunny hopping, air strafing, slide jumping, jumping and aiming down sights easily while maintaining accuracy in the air, these are a few areas of the movement in my opinion that cross the line of semi-believability and authenticity. It's not like these players doing these movement actions are hard to kill necessarily. I just think they look stupid in Battlefield and take me out of the otherwise immersive experience. I don't want milsim movement, that's not what I'm saying. I am more than happy to support more movement options as long as they are semi-believable, as the rest of Battlefield typically is. The addition of the combat role is one example of movement that I think is believable and makes sense and is also readable and naturalistic to our brains. In another bullet point down the list, they state improved predictability and consistency of player movement with new acceleration curves instead of linear accelerations. Those updated accelerations retain responsive movement while allowing micro adjustments of movement, for example, to peak corners, and ensure that other players' movements look more correct to improve the quality and predictability of gunfights. To me, this sounds great. It does sound like they are going to make AD strafing a little less powerful in some cases, but let's hope they haven't gone too far to where it's basically impossible to strafe. There's got to be balance there. But I'm all for making things look more natural and readable overall, because Battlefield 6 does still retain a little jankiness in some of these areas due to being on the same engine and built off of the back of Battlefield 2042. They also included this: made animation and logic improvements to vaulting over medium-sized obstacles, refining momentum and smoothing transitions into movement. The mantling animations are one of the biggest gripes that I have with Battlefield 6, funnily enough, especially with how janky the physics can be when you're vaulting over something. Instead of it being smooth, you're kind of weirdly sucked back down to the ground, and the animation is lightning fast. So if this is what I'm thinking it is, this could be an incredible change. I just want it to feel smooth, but also weighty, just like how Battlefield 3 felt. There is a second bullet point in relation to the movement system that states, fix a movement extrapolation issue that could cause other soldiers to appear jittery when traversing uneven terrain or changing states. This again goes in line with my theory about them just wanting things to be more consistent and readable, which I agree with. Battlefield 6 has some janky issues where you consistently get caught on little pieces of micro terrain on the map, and the physics engine has a hard time dealing with these. This is a kind of legacy Battlefield problem at this point, so if they are able to fix this and make this not happen anymore, then that's a pretty solid change in my opinion. Later in the update notes, it does appear that they are finally addressing some of the animation issues with certain actions like vaulting, ledge grabbing, climbing on ladders, etc., as well as some other animations in between. These are actually some of the changes that I wanted to see addressed, because these poor animations contributed to a plasticky, weightless feeling at times that made the movement feel more janky and sped up than maybe it actually is. So if these changes are making the animations more in line with Battlefield 3's, then I think this is a great change. But we'll have to see if this is actually what they're doing, or if it's just slightly different than before. I still want to see a lot of the game's animations addressed to meet the same quality level that they have for the reload animations. So is this a direct movement nerf? I'll be interested to see certain players' takes, like Enders and other competitive players, to see how they feel about it, because I think these actually might be some good changes, at least from my perspective as someone who wants more grounded movement. But we won't really know what it'll actually be like until we load up the update next week, of course. I'd recommend checking out some channels like The Exclusive Ace for more breakdowns on some of these mechanics, and Ghost Gaming for the news and full coverage of the patch notes themselves. There is a long list of update notes here to address, so I'll be taking a little more time to read through these and break them down so that I fully understand what's actually going on. But what do you guys think? Do these movement changes sound good and in line with what the community wants, or is DICE just making more unnecessary changes? If you agree with my takes about the movement, or just like hearing me yap and complain about Battlefield, feel free to subscribe if you want to. Thanks for watching.